This is the voice of the Cleveland Monsters, Tony Brown, and you're listening to Sports on Tap.
You're listening to Sports on Tap, part of the NEO Sports Insiders Network. Here are your hosts, Rob Troutman, Josh Jeffy, Ed Dick, and Sean Duffy.
And welcome to Sports on Tap. I'm your host, Rob Troutman. We have Sean Duffy, Josh Jeffy, Ed Dick out on assignment, and we're live in Studio J in Brunswick, Ohio. I want to welcome everyone for joining us. We have a jam-packed show here for you tonight as we talk a little Brunswick baseball coming up here in a few minutes with the head coach of the Brunswick Blue Devils, Grant Relic. We also will talk a little bit about Lakewood, the Rangers football team. We got a little conference shakeup there in high school football, and also NHL hockey, the hockey playoffs. You know, Cleveland doesn't have a team, but you know, if you like any teams, whether it's Pittsburgh or Columbus, we have some updates on those series going on.
We sure do. Not to mention, Rob, that shakeup may not just affect football, but all sports associated with Lakewood High School. So, yeah, jam-packed, like you said. Very, very interesting time of the season. Want to bring something up that kind of hurt my soul this weekend before as we just kind of start off here. It's the first time in, 4 or 5 years that our Cavaliers have not been in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's true.
At all. Even really, and you know, suffice to say, LeBron James has been in the playoffs for the last 5 years.
If we don't make it, LeBron doesn't make it. Apparently.
I mean, I think that's what I was getting at there, Rob. Is that it's a very weird time in Cleveland. There's a lot of anticipation for our Brownies. The Indians, again, I'm on record as not being a big fan, but they're not exactly lighting the world on fire at this moment. So really, the entire state of Ohio is focused on this team in Columbus that is one win away from winning their first ever NHL playoff series.
And as you're listening right now, it is 2-1. Blue Jackets with the lead with 7:40 left in the first period. They have
let's go!
There's some live action for you. They just make it 3-1 on a power play goal, and the Blue Jackets come out firing. We'll talk about them a little bit later on the broadcast, but as Rob mentioned, we're going to be talking to Brunswick head coach of their baseball team, who today went on to play Solon, but lost a tough game 4-0. Their record in the GCC dropped to 5-1, 7-4 overall on the year. Junior pitcher Scott Rouse had a good game, 6 innings pitched, 11 strikeouts in this game. But the Blue Devils could not get their bats up. Grant Relic, a friend of show, has been on the show multiple times, plus fellow alum of Brunswick High School, and good friends with Rob and I as we graduate high school. Was our senior quarterback, was our varsity quarterback when we played, led us to a lot of good victories, broke a lot of records on the football end, as well as being a heck of a basketball player and baseball player in his own right.
What do you think about this, us creating a tier level for friend of show status? I think the beginning part of that tier should be friend of show, then perhaps, legend of show, and then perhaps hero of show. What do you think?
I don't know, hero of show. That's
or something cool. I've been watching a lot of Game of Thrones, so I like the idea of like knighthood or some sort of like he has like a title like Sir or Lord. Ooh, Lord of Show. I think that would be awesome. But we're standing by to get Coach Relic on the phone, and all
right, guys.
All right, we're back. We're back.
Yeah, I think we're back, and we're live now with the Brunswick baseball varsity head coach, Grant Relic. So far this season, it's been a pretty successful one. 5-1 in the GCC, 7-4 overall. Talk a little bit about how the season's been going for you.
We got Hudson, Walsh again coming up, which is good because we're a very young, inexperienced team, playing a lot of sophomores and juniors right now, so trying to expose them to the best competition possible and get ready for the tournament run there in May.
Yeah, and I know it's a long season, so you're 7-4 right now, but there's 25 or 30 games ahead. Not to mention, if you have tournament play, you travel with the team, and do some different stuff on the road. But talk a little bit about the season that some of your players are having.
We're missing right now senior Derek Katrubes, who's committed to Ohio Dominican, hasn't played yet this year. He's battling a hamstring injury. He's been our starting center fielder for the last couple of years. Another couple seniors stepping up. Second baseman Kyle Kupta has been thrown into the fire, having a good year. Senior Dylan Nagy. And like you said, we got a good group. Scotty Rouse, who pitched today, is a junior. He's kind of emerged right now as a guy that we can give the ball to day in and day out. He went 6 innings, had 11 Ks against Solon. But again, we forgot our bats on the bus basically today. But that'll happen against good teams, good quality. Another junior, Mike McFadden, catcher, first baseman, hitting about 450 right now early on in the year. We got a left-handed pitcher, Cooper Fox, who's also a junior, that's contributing right now. And then we got quite a few sophomores. We got a sophomore behind the dish, and Josh Cross, who's a switch-hitting catcher. He's got power from both sides of the plate. Outfielder, second baseman, Jacob Charette is in the starting lineup day in and day out, mostly in left field. Another one, Jacob Dye, another athlete that we're, moved from shortstop to the outfield as well. He's in the lineup. We got another pitcher that's a sophomore, Andrew Haber. He threw a complete game shutout the other day against North Royalton. And then really one of the big surprises for us is we were able to get Kyle Gessler, the basketball player, back onto the baseball field. He was our starting shortstop as a sophomore, didn't play as a junior, and now this year he's kind of settled back into the shortstop role for us, so that's made a big difference for our guys.
Yeah, and this season has been impressive. What's the first thing that you've noticed a difference in with the turnout, from when you took this job up till now? I mean, when you first took it, I think we talked a lot about the young team that you had. But from now till then, what's the one difference you've noticed that you took over, from the first season till now?
I don't know if there's a big difference. In Brunswick, I mean, you guys know what it's like. We're a baseball community. We got kids that love to play the game of baseball. And last year we had a group where we had like 13 seniors. So we had a lot of senior leadership last year. And this year's kind of a challenge for us right now just because of how young we are and more inexperienced. We got a lot of talent. It's just more inexperienced. And I think the one thing that that is nice about the teams that we've had in Brunswick is the kids all seem to really kind of gel together and get along and have a good time with each other. And, now it's just a matter of can we take that energy of, all being buddies with one another and turn it into some W's and make something special happen.
Yeah, and a 7-4 record this season. But how tough has it been in the Greater Cleveland Conference where you're 5-1? You lost today to Solon 4-0, like you said. But a 5-1 record in the GCC, I mean, it's a tough conference, and I know you play tough teams out at conference as well. How does that set you up for, the big tournament when it comes up down the line?
Yeah, that's what it's all about. I would, like to think that most people would agree that the GCC is probably one of the top 2 or 3 baseball conferences in the state of Ohio. Year in and year out, we get like 3 teams that advance, out of their district. We were lucky enough to play another young team kind of like us in Strongsville and, beat our rival twice, which was big. They're a team that beat Menor today and, they're going to eventually turn it around just like we hope we kind of do. And, but yeah, when you're playing Solon twice in a week and Menor twice in a week and Medina twice in a week, and then, like next week we play Medina twice, Monday, Tuesday, Menor Thursday, Walsh Friday down at Canal Park under the lights, and then Hudson on Saturday. I mean, that's about as tough as you can get probably in the state of Ohio. But like you said, it's all about, I don't care if we're 13-13 headed into the tournament because I know we've challenged ourselves and we can make a run.
Yeah, and I remember when we played, those Columbus tournaments. I know we played Waterson. We went to Dublin, Kaufman, and I thought some of those tournaments were a lot of fun as a bonding experience for our team. Just to come together and have that team atmosphere and be together. How has that been for your guys this season? Whether it's traveling or just getting on the bus and going on a road trip, how has that been for your guys, and what have you seen from your team?
Like I said, I think the nice thing is with this group, we after practices and after games, it's, hey, you guys want to go to BW3s, you guys want to go to Panini's and get something to eat. Unfortunately this year we're still going to Dublin Kaufman for our weekend, for our overnight like we always do, but there were some schedule counts, so we're doing it later in the year, which actually might not be a bad thing for us because, we hit kind of the tough part of the schedule, and then the guys can get away. We go to Dave and Buster's for the night, and we get up and play a couple games. And, anytime you can do anything like that as a team really just brings those guys together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, that was always a fun trip. And like you said, sometimes it is good, to get maybe through a little bit of your schedule, and then all of a sudden, in the middle of it, you could break it up with a nice trip like that. So that might work out to your advantage there, and the team as well. I'm sure they'll enjoy it. When looking at your team, we talked about some of the players. How about some of the younger guys, the seniors and the juniors that really bring up some of the freshmen and sophomores that might make varsity? And who do you have your eye on that, might make a contribution to the team later on in the season?
Yeah, well, like I said, we got 4 sophomores right now that are really contributing. Andrew Haber lined up as our number 3 pitcher right now. He threw great against St. Ignatius, took a 4-0 loss, went about 5 innings, threw a complete game shutout against North Royalton on Saturday when we won 6-0. He's another kid that can play the field and play third base, which we'll do past this year, but he's got all-state player Mike Williams in front of him, so that's kind of hard. Jacob Charette is another kid. Again, he's in left field for us the majority of the time, but can also play second base. He's a left-handed kid that's got he's got that natural left-handed swing to him. Josh Cross, who's behind the plate, is another sophomore. He started all but 2 games for us behind the plate, and I think he's throwing out about 70% of the would-be base runners.
Wow.
Trying to steal. Again, power hitter.
Yeah.
And Jacob Dye's another one. He's a kid who's a natural shortstop, but got moved to he played center field today. He'll be in right field tomorrow. And, the thing with these kids is we don't expect them to go out and, hit 400 and lead the team in RBIs and that type of thing. We want them to be role players and to learn from the older guys. And, there's some other young guys within our program. There's a young pitcher that's on JV, CJ Navicki, who, unfortunately for him, he had his appendix burst right before the season started. So he was a kid that we were looking at for some varsity time, so he's just working his way back in. And, we got a nice group of sophomores and freshmen playing at the freshman and JV level. So, we always have good turnover. Even when we graduate some talent, we're always, not necessarily rebuilding, but reloading.
Yeah, and I think you've done a nice job with the freshmen and the JV teams. Everybody understands what their role is and what they're doing, and like you said, when guys can play multiple positions on the field, that really benefits your team. That shows you what kind of player they are. When you said a guy's a shortstop and he's playing right and left field, that's obviously gonna be a huge symbol for the rest of the players that if you want to play and you're willing to do anything, you're gonna find a spot for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I use Derek Katrubes, who's our starting center fielder, as an example. He was a third baseman, shortstop, and we converted him to an outfielder, and now he's going to Ohio Dominican to play center field. And I always like to tell guys, it's a little different than summer ball when a summer baseball coach can pick you to play shortstop.
Yeah.
Whereas we get 4 or 5 guys that all play shortstop during the summer, and if you're the best player, we're going to find it's going to take you a little bit of time to adjust to playing outfield. But I don't care if I have 9 shortstops, I'm going to put them in the field.
Yeah. Yeah, and you've done a great job. I feel like every year, even last year, you guys had a nice run in the playoffs, and I think like you talked about a little bit with Strongsville, they're always, it seems like, slow out of the gate, and then as the playoffs come closer, you could tell that they pick up steam and they always make a nice playoff push as well. How nice was that when you guys won in extra innings? Recently to take one away from Strongsville. How nice was that one, and how nice is it to go against Coach Cicerci and that Strongsville team and get some wins?
Well, that's it's a confidence boost. Mike Williams, who's a senior this year, after we beat them the first time, that was the first time he had beaten them in his career at the varsity level, and that's the first time for me. I think I was 0 for like 5 or 6 against them going into this year. So regardless of how young or inexperienced they are, it's more of a confidence boost for our guys to let them know that we can compete with anybody.
Yeah.
And that's the end goal. Like you said, the tournament. High school baseball's kind of evolved a little bit where it's nice to win a conference championship, but the end goal is ultimately the tournament and the tournament run.
Yeah, and I think really the season, doesn't it pretty much prep you and your guys? And, I mean, when you look at the regular season, is your goal, to get a little bit on of a hot streak before the playoffs, or when it's playoff time, it's do or die for these kids to get wins, and they know what's on the line?
Yeah, it really is about momentum right before the tournament. Is what you're looking for. You can live with, like today as an example, we lose 4-0. Everything's a learning experience in the game of baseball. There's always something that we can take away from it to hopefully build us up for that tournament. And, you always find some teams get hot. I remember Akron Hoban last year was a team that, we lost to in the sectional final at our place. And they had just come off of wins against like Massillon Jackson and, some of the top teams in the state. And their record wasn't great. But it's about getting hot at the right time and gelling as a team and hopefully not peaking too early. You don't want to be 10-0 out the gate and then all of a sudden you're 10-10 and you're struggling heading into the tournament.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, it's going to be a fun season. I know it's early right now. It's 7-4, 5-1 in conference, but it's a long season, and we'll definitely be watching, and we'd love to have you, maybe at the end of the season just to wrap it up and go through, what your season brought you since it's so early now. But we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us here on Sports on Tap tonight.
All right, I appreciate it. Anytime you guys need me, you know where to find me, Rob T.
Hey, Grant, it's always great to talk to you. And, obviously one of these shows, maybe we'll just talk some stories about Brunswick baseball and our pastime.
Absolutely. You and I could fill up a couple hours with what it was like growing up in Brunswick playing ball.
Oh, very easily. I mean, it might have to be, a few hours here, and then maybe we'll have a 4-hour show or something,
You got it.
Have alumni on.
Absolutely. That'd be fun.
All right, Grant. Well, hey, thanks for joining us. Tell the family we said hi, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care, guys. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. That's Grant Relic, the head coach of the Brunswick Blue Devils baseball team, joining us here on Sports on Tap. Want to thank him for taking time to join us.
Yeah, we also like to apologize for some of those technical difficulties. It happens. Live broadcasting, sometimes it goes wrong. It even happens to the big boys. 92.3
right.
The Fan today had some problems. But we made it through, so again, we thank Grant for coming on, and once again apologize for the technical difficulties.
Top-notch adjustment to the technical difficulties.
Hey, that's what you got to do. You got to be able to adjust on the fly, and I think we did that really well.
Yeah.
Some great insight by Grant. You could tell that he knows a lot about his team. He knows the limitations, but he also knows the expectations for his team and what he expects out of his team, and also knows what he can see from his team in the future. He knows what what they could possibly do if they work hard.
Yeah, and with baseball, I mean, it's a long season. I mean, they've played 11 games. They usually you play 25 to 30 games, and you're still trying to figure out lineups in situations, or you'd like to put your team in close game situations and maybe get them to bunt runners over. You like to do different things, and I think that's what Grant's doing now is figuring out what lineups work. He's got a lot of young guys, but then he does have the veteran leadership as well. Like he said, they lost 11 to 13 seniors last year. He said. And you come back this year, you're at 7-4, 5-1 in a very tough Greater Cleveland High School, or not Greater Cleveland High School Hockey League, Greater Cleveland Conference.
Well, now they're not even playing the same sport, Rob.
Yeah, now we're moving to hockey. But, that's a tough league. And like he said, Solon has always been very good. Strongsville, Coach Cicerci has done a great job at Strongsville, teaching those kids and developing them through their program now. And I think you're seeing Grant do the same thing with Brunswick, is trying to establish the program and, from start to finish when you're young, developing them till now. And Strongsville has done a great job with that. I think it's funny when you watch Strongsville, when it comes to playoff time, they get the big wins. I think last year they beat Ignatius and Eds, I believe, at one point during the season. And down the line, that's one thing we'll try to do is maybe get some other baseball teams and coaches to come on the show before the season's out and talk a little baseball with us. But Grant's always a great interview, and he's honest. He likes to tell you about his team, and thought he did a great job breaking that down for us here tonight.
You can sense the excitement he has for what the potential is for that team right now. I think, we're talking to him extremely early in the season. 11 games in? I don't think it's a fair. Really, you're going to get much more of a fair assessment from a coach. He has a lot of expectation for his players that he knows a lot about, and I think he's seeing some surprises from some players that are maybe new or back into the lineup. So,
whoa, Sean Duffy!
It's
been a long week already.
Been a long week, and it's only Tuesday. No, but I definitely think that Grant's got that program on the up and up, and I think they're consistently going to be a competitor come playoff time. And who knows? The way this shakes out is, it's extremely competitive in this district, in their district, and the districts that are around the Northeast Ohio area. For baseball especially is very it's almost like football. It's very, very difficult, but the teams that come out of out of these districts usually have a long run deep into the playoffs and usually come away with some state championships. So we'll see where it comes out of and if Grant can get his team to play very well. I will politely step aside for whatever you were proposing to him at the end, some sort of baseball
Brunswick alumni show.
The let's reminisce because we're in our late 30s, almost 40s.
That's right.
Yeah, let's remember when we were 17 playing a kids game. I'm going to step back from that.
We had a lot of fun.
I'll gladly produce that for you. I'll help Josh produce that for you.
Yeah.
But I will have zero input as to that, and I don't. But I'd love to hear about the glory days of Richard Troutman. Dusting up the base paths, playing. What'd you play? Shortstop.
Shortstop.
A 4-year letter winner.
Roberto Lindor over here.
Yeah.
I wish I was as good as him. But no, we had a lot of fun, and it's always good talking a little baseball with Coach Relic, and we'll have some other baseball teams as well. You can follow us at SOT Podcast on Twitter. We're on Instagram as well. Go to our website, sportsontappodcast.com. You want to email the show and get involved, it's sportsontappodcast@gmail.com. We're all over social media. Go to our YouTube page where we archive all of our podcasts. When we come back, though, we're going to talk about the Lakewood Rangers as they move conferences in 2020. We'll talk about that shakeup and also talk a little NHL hockey. And, hey, how about the Cleveland Monsters? They got into the playoffs as well. We didn't forget about you, Monsters. We'll talk all about that coming up on Sports on Tap. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Why do you exercise? To look better? To feel better? To drop a few pounds? To train for an event? To defy age? or to keep your ability to say yes to the things you love to do. Whatever motivates you, G&G Fitness Equipment is here to get you there. Treadmills, ellipticals, rowers, bikes, home gyms, and accessories. We'll pair you with the right equipment, teach you how to use it, and be there every step of your fitness journey. G&G Fitness. Your goal is our goal.
Are you a business? Want to be featured on Sports on Tap? Get in front of different age groups in the local community. Contact us at sportsontappodcast@gmail.com for more information. RRT Productions, specializing in creating sports recruiting videos for all high school athletes. Want to play at the next level? Promote your talents with a video to send colleges. Affordable, experienced, and a high-quality video. Make us your local video production company. Visit our website, rrt-productions.com, and contact us today. RRT Productions, we shoot, we edit, you win.
No matter the season, it's always the right time for Z's Cream of Bean. Whether you want to warm up with some of their delicious soups, chilies, or coffees, or sample from their delicious selection of ice cream, shakes, and other cool treats, Z's Cream of Bean has you covered. Visit them at 2706 Boston Road in Hinckley, Ohio, and tell them the guys at Sports on Tap sent you.
For the best coverage of Cavs, Indians, and Browns, check out NEOSportsInsiders.com. NEOSportsInsiders.com brings you breaking news, opinions, and video from all things related to your favorite Cleveland sports teams. Like us on Facebook and follow at NEO Sports Insiders on Twitter for live updates from all the games. NEOSportsInsiders.com, bringing you the best in Northeast Ohio sports coverage.
And welcome back to Sports on Tap. I'm Rob Troutman, Sean Duffy, and Josh Jeffy here live in Studio J. You can catch us at SOT Podcast on Twitter or go to our website, sportsontappodcast.com, and get involved with the show if you have any ideas or, want your team or league covered and you have information. sportsontappodcast@gmail.com is our information there. Guys, talking – a little bit about quickly about Lakewood, and they're joining the Great Lakes Conference, and this is in 2020. I think it's an interesting one that will shake up Northeast Ohio a little bit, and they've been in the SWC for a little while now. After they've been in there on a 5-year partnership with SWC, And you look at the Great Lakes Conference, and they're already adding Fairview and Buckeye coming this fall. To add a Lakewood in 2020, I think is a pretty exciting thing for Lakewood there.
I think what it does mostly is allow them to compete against some other teams, and maybe have a little bit more success. I mean, we talk about it every year. The Southwestern Conference, top to bottom, is as competitive a conference as I think there is in the state of Ohio. It's surely enough right there with the GCC and the suburban conferences, and even some of the other conferences we don't cover. And it's tough to beat those teams that are just consistently those teams that are always at the top. And Lakewood probably sees a little bit more of a from a football standpoint at least.
Yeah, you're looking. Yeah, this is. In terms of football,
purely football, yeah. Just maybe to have a little more sense, but also just to variety is the spice of life. So you've played these teams, you've done 5 years playing the same teams over and over again. You have an opportunity to move to a league that incorporates a little bit more geographically. I mean, if you look at it from a geographical standpoint, Lakewood's kind of the outlier in the Southwestern Conference, and maybe this plays a little bit more, geographically in their favor. Now they're being able to play teams that are closer: Fairview, Rocky River, Bay Village. So even some of the Elyria, the Lorain County teams. It may be a little bit better, maybe more beneficial to them geographically as far as that's concerned. So I think this is a good move for Lakewood. I also think it opens up an opportunity for another team to maybe look at the Southwestern Conference and test their mettle a little bit. And say, do we want maybe Southwestern Conference look and say, okay, do we want to add another team? Do we want to keep it at the teams we have? Because as you mentioned, or as we mention every year, the way this Southwestern Conference was set up, they had 1 week of non-conference play, and then they're into conference play because there were so many teams. So maybe the Southwestern Conference was thinking, okay, starting 2020, now we can have more of a similar type season as to most other teams, where you have a couple weeks of non-conference. You can maybe build up your schedule that way, and then you get into conference play, and you're not, running that gamut, so to speak, starting week 2, and where, an early loss can really set you back going forward.
Well, you mentioned, just going back a little bit, when you mentioned about geographic, Lakewood principal Mark Walter, in this article in Cleveland.com, he stressed improved travel with this move, and what he said, and I quote, "We look forward to joining the Great Lakes Conference and providing our student athletes with spirited competition coupled with less travel time, allowing a better balance for students and families." And he went on to thank the Southwestern Conference for the last 4 years. But I think that's a big part of it, too, travel and competitiveness. Yeah. When it comes – let's be honest, football is a big – moneymaker for the athletic boosters and the schools themselves. If teams are good and you get into a playoff, that's where a lot of athletic departments can get some money there. I think football is a big part of it, but the rest of it too: basketball, both girls and boys, baseball, softball, tennis, among others. Soccer. This is going to provide hopefully better competition for Lakewood, and not to mention you're adding those 2 teams. I believe you said Fairview and Buckeye, which we've covered a lot, and this is going to be a big step for Buckeye. And then Sean, what you said, going back, maybe this is a way for another team to step up into the Southwestern Conference, or like we were talking before the show, maybe this is a way for a team like a Berea Mint Park, who is the only Division I team in that conference, maybe moving conferences to, let's say, the GCC, where they are losing a team in Shaker Heights. Shaker Heights will be joining the Lake Erie League next year, 2020, along with Garfield Heights. So there's definitely some movement that can be had. I don't know what kind of agreements Berea Mint Park has with the Southwestern Conference and all that, but to me that seems like a logical move, so they can build up that Division I points, especially in football, because we saw last year they were having a really great year. But in terms of in the Division I, they weren't able to really.
Yeah, and I think going back to what I said earlier was, if it provides an opportunity for teams in the Southwestern Conference to create a non-conference schedule that can, help them out playoff-wise, and I think that would be a big help to a program like Berea Mint Park, who, only has, next year only has the one opportunity, the 1 week to schedule a big-time game. chances are you're not going to get a big-time game. And if you do, and if you lose that game, then you kind of put yourself behind the 8 ball. So you have to weigh that opportunity out there. And then you have to basically run the gamut in the Southwestern Conference and hope those teams beat other teams going forward. And that's a big problem. And I'm not saying it's a super huge problem that the Southwestern Conference is responsible for. It's not. But again, it's just you have to look at all opportunities, and maybe adding a team may not be the best opportunity going forward for the Southwestern Conference. I mean, maybe they want to say, okay, we had, I think, 11 teams last year and this year, and then we could say, okay, now we only have 10, and now we can break that up to say, okay, maybe we can have now, instead of 1 week of non-conference, maybe just 2, or maybe even 3, depending upon how it shakes out at the end. But I think from a standpoint of Lakewood, I perfectly, the one thing we talk about when we talk about high school sports is the sport and the program. But let's also remember, these kids are high school kids. They have to be, they're there to, go to school. This is an extracurricular activity. So, yeah, travel's a big-time deal, and for someone in Lakewood to travel all the way out to Amherst to play a basketball game, we're not talking about a Friday night when Saturday, they don't have school. We're talking about a Wednesday night, basketball, wrestling, soccer game that they have to get in and then drive all the way back to Lakewood where they live. That's an hour to travel. That's, you know what I mean? Like, that's putting it a little behind the able. Now, they may have the same type of problem if they have to go to Buckeye, but maybe not as quite as bad. You know what I mean?
Like, and it's not probably as often as,
right.
Everybody, when you look at Lakewood, they were in the West Shore Conference at one point with Bay, Rocky River, and Elyria Catholic.
Yeah.
So they're going to reunite with those teams now in the Great Lakes Conference. And looking also that's in the Great Lakes Conference, you have a mix of Division II and Division III schools in football with, the Parma schools, and that would be Parma Senior, Valley Forge, and Normandy.
Those are
you get a good mix of schools there. And I just think overall, this is a pretty big decision, but I think it makes a lot of sense. Where you look at Lakewood, Rocky River, Fairview, Bay, all those schools are right there. So for them, to not have to, since travel is a pretty big thing for them, that's all in their backyard. And Parma's right down the road. Elyria Catholic's not too far away. So really, it's all in one area there, and I think it's a very good move for them, and hopefully they'll be able to compete, because I know the Southwestern Conference, it's a grind for any team.
Yeah.
So hopefully, this is a good move for them, and I look forward really to see what happens with the move.
I think it's going to benefit not only – I think it's going to be one of those win-wins for both the school, the Great Lakes Conference. I think the Lakewood Rangers are going to be a great addition to the Great Lakes Conference in 2020. I think it's going to make that league a lot more competitive in all sports. But I also think it helps out the Southwestern Conference a little bit too. It's
going to be interesting to see what happens if they add anybody, or if they keep it the way it is, and to see what. Maybe Berea Mid-Park would make a switch. I don't know. I know this will happen, obviously, with Lakewood joining the Great Lakes Conference in 2020. Mm-hmm. So, they'll play in the Southwestern Conference this year and then head there, and we'll see how it works out. But really, you can't go wrong. I think everybody will eventually be a winner here.
It's setting up for a really nice season. I think this is really the inaugural season of the new the Great Lakes Conference, GLC.
Yeah.
And then with that addition coming in 2020 is going to be interesting to see how that plays out as well. So I'm excited to see how this Great Lakes Conference actually becomes what I think it can be, is one of those really good conferences that we're going to end up talking a lot about. This could be a Southwestern Conference in the making, for all we know, because there's a lot of good teams coming to play each other that geographically just makes sense. And I think we could see a possibility. We could even come into a situation where the Great Lakes League in, say, a Division III, in a couple of these regions in Division III, could be playing each other in playoffs games, like the Southwestern Conference was in Division II, like the GCC is, and the Suburban League is in the Division Ones and Division II and III. So I think this is going to be a really, really excellent move for Lakewood. I think it's kind of a fresh start to a certain degree for them. And you know what? Who knows? Lakewood could be the next champion of the GLC for all we know.
Yep. You never know. But right now, let's move to the Cleveland Monsters, who made the playoffs, Sean.
They did.
And how exciting is it? They'll take on Syracuse, who is the Tampa Bay Lightning NHL affiliate.
Interesting.
Wow, imagine that.
Well, let's hope they meet the same fate as the Tampa Bay Lightning, and let's hope that the Cleveland Monsters at the number 4 seed in the North Atlantic Division? Is that how is that how they say it?
Yeah, they have
North Atlantic.
The North. This is now they
North Division.
It's the North
semifinals.
Division.
Okay,
and it's a best of 5 here.
Right. So Syracuse Crunch is the number 1 seed, and Cleveland is the number 4 seed.
Yep, and it starts on actually
Friday.
Let's see here.
Game 1 is
it
7
says
o'clock
on Tuesday.
It says Game 1 Friday.
Friday. Friday
at 7 p.m. And it's the way this works is it's 2 games in Syracuse, and then 2 games in Cleveland, and then a 5th game back at Syracuse. So conceivably, when Cleveland is up 3 or up 2-0, they're coming back to win it at the Q. I mean, I'm sorry, it's not the Q anymore. It's the Rocket Mortgage Telemarketer Fieldhouse and Convention Center.
Oh,
whatever they're calling it now.
It's going to be tough to change. It took a while to go from Gun to the Q. Everybody gets used to the Q, but everybody will get used to it.
They're gonna end up calling it the Rock. You know they are.
That's what
probably. Yeah. Headed to the Rock.
The Rock Fieldhouse.
You got to pack the Rock as the Monsters. We had a chance to talk to Tony Brown, and you can go to our YouTube page and listen to
interview.
Our interview with the voice of the Monsters, Tony Brown, and he did such a great job. He's from out of town, so he's originally from Minnesota. One of my questions to him was, he's in Cleveland a lot now. Is Cleveland a hockey town? Because a lot of people say, we don't have professional hockey here. I mean, like NHL hockey. So, Cleveland really couldn't handle it, and he disagreed with that and said, when the Monsters are drawing in a top 3 in attendance every year, he seems to think otherwise, and he had the chance to call that Calder Cup championship, which is pretty cool.
And I'll say this, the Monsters game as a whole is an experience, whether they're winning, whether they're losing. I challenge anyone in the American Hockey League to say that there's not a better atmosphere for a family fun night at a hockey game than a Monsters game. I really do. They do a great job down at the Q. Every single one from, concessions to, prizes to giveaways to the game. And then the product on the ice is even better because it's good. It's fun to watch. And, when you talked to Tony, it was kind of a question whether or not Cleveland was actually going to make the playoffs. In fact, they were pretty far out of the race there, and for them to come back and earn this playoff spot, they may be one of those teams that nobody wants to play right now because they got hot coming into the playoffs. Very much like Columbus right now, who's taking on and defeating or beating
right now
the number 1, the best team in the NHL, the President's Cup winner, is down 3-0 to a team that barely got into the playoffs.
And during this series, a lot of players some of the players on the Blue Jackets have made a very big impact. Played on that Calder Cup championship team in 2016. So that's the one good thing, the major thing that I think in terms of attendance at the Q for these games. Now it was smart for the Monsters to end their partnership with the Avalanche because
that was my team in college that I loved and followed.
Yeah, they were basically the AAA team, for lack of a better term, of the Colorado Avalanche. And then a couple years ago, they made the switch to the Columbus Blue Jackets, keeping that geography closer together. So not only people here in Cleveland, in the Cleveland market, Akron, Canton, they're following the Monsters, but then they can follow those players down 120 miles away to the south, down 71 to Columbus, and they remain fans, and they're building the fandom up here. And you're seeing it. You have the Blue Jackets on the local ESPN affiliate. You have them on Fox Sports Ohio. You're able to see it. So it'll be interesting to see how the ratings played during this Stanley Cup series if they go ahead and advance compared to the other ones. Right now they are up 2-1, about 3/4 of the way or a quarter of the way into the second period. It was 3-1. They had a power play goal, but it was reversed.
And how was it? I missed that. How was that reversed?
Rob, we were in the middle of doing a great interview, trying not to screw up the interview much more than we did with Brunswick head coach Grant Relic. So I did not see. But nonetheless, Blue Jackets still up 2-1, and they're still attacking to start this second period.
Yeah, and you know what? One thing that is interesting is Zach Dalpe was recalled back down to the Cleveland Monsters. As he was called up actually to Columbus, but he's had such an impact on the Monsters team this season that they called him back, and the Blue Jackets, as we're just scored, and let's wait to see if they confirm it or if what happened here, because we went nuts on the air a little bit ago, and they took that one away. Let's see if this one will stand, but. One thing with Zach Dalpe, he leads Cleveland in goals with 33, has 55 points, 10 power play goals, and this is just being limited to 55 appearances. He had a midseason injury absence there. And if you want any information on the Monsters, go to clevelandmonsters.com, where you can follow Tony Brown. And all the information on the Monsters hockey that's a good goal by the Blue Jackets, who now lead 3-1. And was that Jones with
Seth Jones?
Seth Jones
goal.
Again. He's been huge in this series and been a huge player all year for the Blue Jackets.
So looking at the Monsters, let's just kind of put a button on that. They're in the playoffs, so anytime a team's in the playoffs, they got a shot. We'll see how things shake out after a couple games in Syracuse. Obviously, you'd like to come away there with the split at the very worst. You'd love to take two games in Syracuse, come back for the home clincher. But we'll see how this game plays out. Obviously Cleveland, I think, is a hot team getting in there.
And I think didn't they do this during the Calder Cup? They just made the playoffs and then they went on to win the Calder Cup.
Yeah, they were. I don't know if they just made it, but they were not exactly like
Yeah, they weren't the number one.
They weren't like
seed.
a number one team that everyone was talking about. So we'll see how it works. I'm interested to see how. Wow, they are just attacking the goal.
Yeah, the Blue Jackets not letting up in this one as they have 11 shots on goal to Tampa Bay's 7 right now, currently in the second period.
But from us here at Sports on Tap, we want to wish the Cleveland Monsters, who do a fantastic job of presenting their product, and we wish them all the best in the Calder Cup playoffs. We're rooting for you, so go Monsters.
Yep.
We're going to go ahead and step away here for a couple minutes, and we'll come back and we'll talk basically what we've been watching this whole time while we're talking about the Cleveland Monsters. We'll talk Blue Jackets hockey, and then whatever else comes to the top of our heads. This is Sports on Tap. We'll see you on the other side of the break.
Nice.
Why do you exercise? To look better? To feel better? To drop a few pounds? To train for an event? To defy age? Or to keep your ability to say yes to the things you love to do? Whatever motivates you, G&G Fitness Equipment is here to get you there. Treadmills, ellipticals, rowers, bikes, home gyms, and accessories. We'll pair you with the right equipment, teach you how to use it, and be there every step of your fitness journey. G&G Fitness. Your goal is our goal.
Are you a business? Want to be featured on Sports on Tap? Get in front of different age groups in the local community. Contact us at sportsontappodcast@gmail.com for more information. RRT Productions, specializing in creating sports recruiting videos for all high school athletes. Want to play at the next level? Promote your talents with a video to send colleges. Affordable, experienced, and a high-quality video. Make us your local video production company. Visit our website, rrt-productions.com, and contact us today. RRT Productions, we shoot, we edit, you win.
No matter the season, it's always the right time for Z's Cream of Bean. Whether you want to warm up with some of their delicious soups, chilies, or coffees, or sample from their delicious selection of ice cream, shakes, and other cool treats, Z's Cream of Bean has you covered. Visit them at 2706 Boston Road in Hinckley, Ohio, and tell them the guys at Sports on Tap sent you.
For the best coverage of Cavs, Indians, and Browns, check out NEOSportsInsiders.com. NEOSportsInsiders.com brings you breaking news, opinions, and video from all things related to your favorite Cleveland sports teams. Like us on Facebook and follow at NEO Sports Insiders on Twitter for live updates from all the games. NEOSportsInsiders.com, bringing you the best in Northeast Ohio sports coverage.
And welcome back to Sports on Tap. I'm your host, Rob Troutman. Sean Duffy and Josh Jeffy with me here in the Studio J. In the J studio.
In the J studio?
Studio
Wow.
J. Yeah.
Ed Dick's still on assignment.
Hey,
Yeah.
we were letting you go with that
know.
intro there. You were in the moment. You
was.
You saw on
Dynamite
look,
dropping.
I thought about it, and I'm like, wait, that doesn't
the
sound
look on
right.
your face was
Priceless.
one of concentration and due diligence.
Right.
But, you know,
All words I should be able to understand, but I don't.
well, so far, if you want to go back and listen to this, once we put it on and archive it on YouTube, we had a chance to talk to the Brunswick varsity baseball coach, Grant Relic, about his season and what he looks forward to as he heads toward the playoffs, which is a little ways away. And we also had a chance to talk Cleveland Monsters hockey. We talked about the Lakewood Rangers changing divisions and conferences into the Great Lakes Conference and what that means for a little bit of a shakeup in the conference. So it should be interesting to see what happens with that. But we had a chance to break it down and talk about that. And now we're talking about Blue Jackets hockey here in Cleveland.
Playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, dude, they made the second wild card selection. And Josh, you know, the other wild card selection was the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah.
My other team that I used to love when,
Yeah,
you know.
we know.
Yeah, we know.
He just said
we
that.
get it, Rob. You're a big Patrick
But now,
Waugh fan. We get it.
Yeah, dude, Sakic, it was Forsberg, it was Waugh. But
Yeah.
now, you know.
Most of those guys ended up playing for a little team up north called the Detroit Red Wings. But we'll go ahead.
Do you know what? I like the Blue
Forsberg
Jackets. I like the Blue Jackets, and I'm on that bandwagon. And it
I'm on it too.
started to.
Officially on it.
I watched them the last few seasons a little bit, and now I've really watched them more and more. And you know, the Monsters, we can thank them for really getting me to watch the Blue Jackets hockey more this season. And it's been fun watching this Tampa Bay series. But Josh, why don't you break down how the Stanley Cup playoffs, the brackets work?
Okay, well, the 12 there's 12 playoff teams that go. Well, 16 total, but 12 of them are determined. There's 2 divisions, and then the top 3 teams in each division gets playoff spots, and then the 2 best teams after that, regardless of divisions, will be determined. Will be the wild card team. So Columbus finished as the second wild card team in the Eastern Conference. And the other wild card team in the Eastern Conference was the Carolina Hurricanes in the Western Conference. Like you mentioned, Rob, the Colorado Avalanche were the last team in the playoffs for the Western Conference, and then followed by the Dallas Stars. They were the first wild card. So just quickly going over these series, we're going to go. We'll start off in the Western Conference. Nashville against Dallas. That's 1-8. Nashville leads that series 2-1. The second series, the Winnipeg Jets and the St. Louis Blues. A big fan of their number one fan is Ryan Kelberg, not only the president of the Greater Cleveland High School Hockey League. The Jets are the second seed. The Blues are the third seed according to that division, and the Blues are up in that series 2-1. Going down in the bracket, the number one seed, another number one seed in the West, the Calgary Flames, is down 2-1 to Robert Troutman's former team, the Colorado Avalanche. And in the final series in the Western Conference, the defending conference champions, Las Vegas Golden Knights, are up 2-1 on the St. Louis Sharks. Moving over to the Eastern Conference, the series that we've just talked about, and 2 out of 3 are excited about. The St. Louis,
it should be 3 out of 3, Jeffy.
The Tampa Bay Lightning down in the series. The number one seed, the President's Cup winner, down 3-0 in the series to the wild card seed Columbus Blue Jackets. They're currently down 3-1 in this playoff series right now. The one series that I'm most interested in, the Boston Bruins trail.
That tough town that just can't get lucky enough. Those Boston
Bruin.
Those Boston kids up there in Boston, kid.
All right, here we go.
Here we go. The Brews, dude.
Rob gave his story on how he became a Blue Jackets fan.
Yeah, let's hear this.
So I will go back a long time ago, playing NHL '94, picked the Bruins as my team, and all through college, high school, college, kind of kept my eye on them, rooted for them, and then I've just stuck with them. So they officially became my team quite some years ago, and they have been ever since. Rob, you would know, this banner, this Boston Bruins banner that I'm currently patting, that's sitting here in Studio J, was at our dorm room in Bowling Green State University, and you recall that, my friend.
And he would always get the Boston accent when they played in the playoffs, kid. Always. He'd park his car at Harvard Yard and go have a brew down and watch the Bees play hockey.
Hey, are you looking for someone to have a Boston accent and have that Boston attitude in your next movie?
That's as best as I can do without using the F word, because it's so hard not to cuss when you do it. Just so you know.
That's impressive.
Hey, that was.
But I will respect you. You stuck with the team that.
That was pretty dynamite. That was pretty dynamite. Yeah, they're a fun team. They're one of the original 6, and that's we at the time we didn't have a professional hockey team in our geographic state.
Yeah.
So I wanted to pick one of the original 6. I picked them, and I kind of stuck with them ever since. So trying to get back to the promised land. The last time they won a Stanley Cup championship was 2011. So they're hopefully going to start playing a little bit better. The game that they had last night where they lost did not go as well. They weren't playing very good, obviously, if they lost the game. But last year, these two teams played in the playoffs again. It went down to 7 games, but Boston prevailed last year. Hopefully, it will not take 7 games, and Boston will prevail sooner. The other matchups in the Eastern Conference, the defending Stanley Cup champions are playing the Carolina Hurricanes. The Washington Capitals have a 2-1 series lead over the Hurricanes. And then the New York Islanders coming back into the playoffs for the first time in a long time, and they're really putting the hammer down on the Pittsburgh Penguins. They lead that series 3-0.
And I'll tell you what, that's a little surprising to me. And I know some people in Pittsburgh who are huge Penguins fans, and I mean, right now
I know some people in Kentucky that
they're
are
a little
huge
nervous.
Pittsburgh
Oh, there's a
fans,
lot of,
and they are not happy right now.
Well, in Youngstown too,
Right.
I think on 92.3 The Fan, they were talking. Andy Baskin wanted to say, hey, now's your chance to talk a little Blue Jackets hockey, and a guy from Youngstown called and said, there's a lot of Penguins fans. I've always been a Blue Jackets fan, and I'm a little outnumbered here, but hopefully that could change with maybe a little more winning.
Yeah, the Penguins, they've won quite a few Stanley Cups in the past few years here. And then just as of late, they struggled last year. They lost to the Capitals. The Capitals finally got over the hill that is the Penguins. And then, kind of struggling this year. They're struggling a little bit in that in this series right now. But when you have a guy like Sidney Crosby, you always have the ability.
Yeah, and he's such a good player. Tampa Bay, though, now scores as they shot one from the top, and it might have been deflected in there because as you look on replay. I mean,
as we look, Rob, we're on
it's audio
the internet.
medium. It's an audio medium.
Yeah.
Anyway, I would say this one question I would pose
well,
to you
people
guys.
at home might be watching.
Listen, I think the city of Cleveland and Cleveland fans in general find themselves in a bit of a quandary because they are geographically 2 hours from 3 NHL hockey teams. So if you're a hockey fan in Cleveland, you have your choice of being a Red Wings fan, which would be my personal understanding if you weren't. A Penguins fan.
There you go, Sean. There's your. We're not gonna. Hey,
and
you're a Tigers fan too. So if you want to be a Red Wings fan,
here's the thing. I never really got into hockey. I did live in Detroit. I did get to go to a Red Wings game. I had a blast at a Red Wings game. Here's the point. Here's the problem with Red Wings fans. They're kind of like, in my opinion, they're like
Yankees fans.
Yeah, they always think they should be there with no real reason.
Well, they were there for a long time.
Yes, they were.
And they were very good.
I'm not saying. I'm saying like they know, like everybody's talking like the Red Wings are in a rebuilding year, or they're not playing well. They don't have a lot of stars. Whatever. The Ilitch family has run that team for so long. They've done a great job, but they're just not down here, whatever. But they still believe, it. But like they are annoying about it, kind of like the way you Indians fans are when you think every foul ball should be caught or every single
really
every single ball's a strike.
Tell me why I shouldn't mute you right now.
I mean, because I'm making sense.
No, you're not.
Like because I got a Boston accent, kid.